Exodus chapter 17. Man, this chapter of the Bible, I'm going to try this. There's no way I'm going to have enough time to do it, but I'm going to try it anyway because I think you believe in me. And so, Exodus chapter 17, there are legitimately two sermons in this chapter. One starts in verse 8 and the other one starts in verse 1. I'm going to preach the verse 8 sermon that's here, but I have to tell you how God just messing with my head this week as I was studying through this. And you start to read in chapter 17, verse 1. While you're turning and getting to verse 8, I'm going to Cliff Notes sermon you real quick, okay? Because I fought with this. I'm like, God, what do you want me to preach? What do you want me to preach? What do you want me to preach? And he was like, this one. I'm like, yeah, but this is really good. And he said, no, I want you to preach this one. I'm like, I will, but this part's really good. Okay, so in verse 1, we see this interesting moment happen where the children of Israel are now about 3 months into their journey. They've come through the Red Sea. They're about 3 months into the wilderness. Now, think about this. They're 3 months into an 11-day journey. How many of you are already ticked? Right? Like if it's me, I'm already mad about it. Now what's awesome is that we looking back understand they still got about 39 years to go in this. Now they don't realize that yet. But here they are 3 months into the journey and they do what everybody does, what I would do. They start to gripe. They start to complain. But they take it to another level. See, they're out there now, they're getting thirsty. It's been 3 days since they had anything to drink, and they're starting to get thirsty, and so they start to come at Moses. And the Bible uses some very specific wording in the first part of this chapter. It says that they grumbled against Moses, and like a lot of times we would think grumbling is just complaining, but actually the Hebrew word here is to make accusation against. Basically, this was they brought charges against Moses as a group. They brought charges against Moses saying, hey, you've brought us out here to die of thirst. You're going to kill us and all the livestock and everything we have of thirst, and we're bringing charges against you. And Moses then goes to God and said, God, they're going to stone me, which was the actual punishment for this accusation. So this wasn't just a group of people whining. They had taken it to the place of going, we're going to blame this on you, and we're going to make you pay the price for this. And so Moses goes to God and he says, God, what am I going to do with these people? They've brought accusation against me. They've brought this against me. And then it's one of the coolest spots. God says to Moses, he said, this is what I want you to do. Moses, I want you to get your group of elders, your team with you, and I want you to walk right in front of the people. He said, and then I want you to go up to the rock. And the rock would have been where Moses would have addressed the people from. And God says this. It's the only place, one of the only places we see God say this. He says, Moses, I will go stand before you. Some people will think that's God going, I got you, Moses. The wording in there is literally, Moses, I will go stand in your place. You've been accused and you are going to be punished, and I will go stand in your place. It's one of the Old Testament references to grace that sometimes gets passed over. And God says, I will go stand in the place of punishment. And then he tells Moses to do something very specific. He says, what I want you to do is I want you to strike the rock. Strike the rock. I want you to bring punishment to the rock, and I'll be standing there when you do it. And so this is God saying, they're going to make an accusation, and there's going to be a punishment, but I'm going to take it on your behalf, so it doesn't have to be you. And then, once all that happens, water spills out of the rock, everybody lives, and you look at that, and you look at the New Testament picture of Jesus on the cross, where there he took our punishment, he stood taking our accusation of sin and shame, bore it on the cross, and when he died and that blood spilled, there was life given to everybody. And man, God has been blowing my mind with this passage this week. That's all extra. You didn't even have to take notes on that, because now I'm going to actually preach to you my sermon. All right? Exodus. I told you I've been out I've only preached one time in a month. There's a whole lot of stuff running around up here. All right? I may preach 4 different sermons before the day is over. Exodus chapter 17, starting with verse 8. So how many of you have ever had what I call a then moment? You know what these moments are? These are moments in your life where it was just a regular old day, then something happened. was just a doctor's appointment. Then, it was just a fight with my spouse, and then, anybody ever been there? Where all of a sudden something going like this takes an immediate left, and you don't really know what to do with it? That's what happens in verse 8. We see Moses have this moment with the people of God, and everybody's celebrating. There's water gushing out of the rock, and everybody's drinking water, and it's fine. And then verse 8 comes on, and this is what it says. Then Amalek came and fought with Israel. Then a battle came. Man, wasn't that just a battle they were in, Pastor Vince? How many of you have had seasons in your life where you thought it was going tough until it actually got tough? It's good, and you have these trials, and you're like, come on, God, this is too much, and then the hammer falls. Then Amalek fought with Israel. I was thinking through this as this last month of mine. I am not here, this is me being just straight with my church. I'm not good at taking breaks. I've shared this with you. I am trying. We tried camping. We suck at it. It's like screaming at the kids because they're walking around the thing and it's shaking, and people are like, you don't have your jack set right. I don't care. I don't want this. This bed is not comfortable. It doesn't fit. It's too short for me, and my feet hang off. Mike, I'm just going to tell you, you told me about camping. I don't know how you fit in that bed. It's only this big. It's what it feels like to me. And I'm sitting there, and Jennifer and I are like, I'm like, in the middle of the night, we're camping. I'm like, do you want me to just post this thing right now? We'll sell it right now. Right now. In fact, somebody, if they want to come sleep in at the rest, I'll pay the rest of the time here at the campground. They can have it right now. And she's like, are we going to try again? I'm like, well, we'll see. We haven't tried again. Weather's breaking a little bit. We may try again. I'm not going to give up, but I'm not good at resting. And the other thing is, my favorite thing to do, next to being the husband to my wife and being the father to my children, and now the grandfather to my grandchildren, my favorite thing to do is this. Like, this is not only what I get to do, but this is my hobby. Like, I study preachers, I listen to preachers, I watch preachers. This is what I love to do. Like, people at times, I got other things I enjoy. I enjoy sports, I enjoy stuff like that. But this is what I spend the most of my time focusing on, is I want to make sure that I'm getting better at my craft, and I'm doing what I can to preach a word that's meaningful. And so, to not do this it's kind of a punch in the face to me, because this is what I love to do. And I'm finding that as I get older, God is going, this is awesome that you love to do this, but you're not resting. And so even this last month, I come out of surgery and I was like, good. Doctor said I only had to miss one Sunday. I'll be back next Sunday. Came back the next Sunday, was really excited about preaching because I'd missed a Sunday. Might have done a little too much in that sermon. I don't remember which service it was, but somebody said, I wasn't expecting you to be kicking. And I'm like, I kicked? They're like, yeah, right in the middle of service, you're like kicking. And I'm like, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that. Monday morning, I get up and I'm like, oh gosh, my belly hurts. Because this is where my surgery was. And I'm like, shouldn't have done that. Week went on, realized still some things I need to recover from. Okay, God. Man, thank God for Aaron. Because I'll just be straight with you. As a preacher, what I'm finding, I grew up in a preacher's house where you had to be instant, in season, and out of season. Some of you know what that passage means. What that meant for me was, if I get asked to preach, in 5 minutes, I better be ready to pull the trigger. And I'm built that way. That's how I'm wired. It's how I was raised. If you were to ask me, Brother Donnie, you know my dad. We're the same way. That's just how my dad, if God called you to preach, you preach. I'm like, okay, I will. Dadgummit. And so that's how I was wired. But I'm just going to tell you, I'm finding out very few people are wired that way. It brings a lot of anxiety on folks to go, hey, tomorrow, could you speak in front of 1,000 people? No, why not? I don't understand. Aaron, I called him literally Saturday night. I was like, I can't do it. He's like, do you have notes and stuff that you want me to preach? And I'm like, no. He's like, no? And I said, no, because the sermon that I'm supposed to preach tomorrow, I really want to preach. So I'm going to preach it next week. And I need you to preach this other name. And Aaron went, okay. And then he killed it. Last week, he did a great job last week, yeah. But through this season, it was, I'm recovering, I'm doing good, and then I wasn't. And then I wasn't. Some of you walk through seasons in your life where that then has thrown you. You say, what do I do in the then? What do I do when then happens? Here's Moses who's just walked through this moment where God showed up, water from the rock. I mean, the last 3 chapters of this book, I mean, we've seen God do ridiculous things in a 3-month window. We've got him parting the Red Sea. We've got manna from heaven. We've got quail in the afternoon. We've got, just over and over and over, God is showing up, and God is showing up, and God is showing up. And then a battle in the wilderness. You guys remember who he's walking with, right? These are brick builders. These are slaves. These are not warriors. These are not the king's best. This is the slave tribe that the Egyptians had. And now Amalek, who is basically a native people of this region, they know the territory, they've been trained to fight, and we got bricklayers. Come on! And then they showed up. And so what do we do? What do you do when then happens in your life? What do you do when that hard right comes in or that hard left comes in and you go, God, I didn't expect this. I didn't see this coming, and I want to just kind of walk through a couple of things real quick if I can with you. Because I think, like I said, I've been waiting to get to the end of this sermon because, man, how it spoke to me in regards to where I've just been sitting at home and trying to rest. For somebody that doesn't rest well, when the doctor says, I just want you to rest. I'm like, I want to smack him because I don't know what that means. God said, Vince, what are you going to do in your then moment? What are you going to do in the then moment when it does all turn? Because here was me, guys, through July, I am ready for fall. I'm like, yes, it's fall. It's coming. And if you guys know church calendars at all, church in the fall is when everybody kind of settles back down. Kids are back to school. Thank you, Jesus. People's rhythms are getting back in place. They're settling in. And we got a window from about the 1st of September to about the 2nd or 3rd week of November before holidays all hit that you can actually get some traction with people and they start kind of plugging in and they start going, oh, this is what I needed right now. This is what we needed in this season of our life. New families. We've had well over 100 brand new families visit Real Life Church this summer alone. Okay? And so as I'm gearing for the fall, I'm ready. I'm like, end of August, we're going to build up in this name of Jesus. In September, we hit a series called This House, and we're going to be talking about our values as a church and who we are and where we're going. Man, I can't wait. And then I'm out 3 out of 4 weeks. So I don't feel like I'm building the rhythm, and I'm not building up to, and I'm out of rhythm. God, what am I supposed to do now? And then I read this passage. And so I'm going to read it to you. And then Amalek fought with Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. And whenever he lowered his hands, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary. So they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and one on the other side. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. And then the Lord said to Moses, write this as a memorial in a book and recite it in the ears of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under the heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it Jehovah Nissi, saying, the hand upon the throne of the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. I am your banner. Just right now, it may be a little hard to grasp what he means by that. I'll get there in just a second. But I want to give you two things real quick that you can do in the then. When the then occurs, when that shift occurs, when the turn occurs, when the chaos occurs, whatever it is, what do I do? First thing is this: you do only what you can do. You do only what you can do. Again, I'm speaking some of this from experience for myself, but I'm also speaking it as I read this text and I realize what Moses has done. By this time, Moses is an elderly man, well into his hundreds, leading a group, probably over 1 million people, that are disgruntled about 90% of the time we find out for the next 40 years. That's Moses' job. How many of you want that job? No. No, but that was Moses' call. That was the mandate. Moses said, let my people, I want you to lead my people, Moses. It's you. This is what I'm giving you to do. It's your specific call from God himself, and I want you to go do that. Okay, I'll go do that. And so what we see in this text is that Moses does something like every leader ought to do, is he looks around and he goes, Joshua's a fighter. So notice what Moses doesn't do. Moses doesn't go and go, I want you, 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 I want you. No, he goes, Joshua, I want you to go pick the fighters out. Joshua, you do what you can do. I'll do what I can do. Because at this season, God is speaking directly with Moses. And we don't see God speaking directly to anybody else except Aaron on occasion. And in this season, Moses knows his best thing to do in this moment is only what Moses can do. I'm going to go up on the hill and I'm going to take the staff of the Lord, because the people have seen this staff part the waters. They've seen this staff call water out of the rock. They've seen the staff of God do some things. And so I'm going to only do what I can do. Joshua, you go do what you can do. And as you read this text, we see that this is Joshua's response as we get into it. He says, so Moses said to Joshua, choose us men, go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Verse 10, so Joshua did as Moses told him. And he fought with Amalek while Moses and Aaron and Hur went up on top of the hill. Verse 13, and Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. Joshua was tasked with fighting a battle, and Joshua fights a battle. What I love is there's not a lot of stuff in this text. How many of you know that we kind of sometimes get mixed up in the stuff? How many of you know that if it had been you on the battlefield, there might have been a moment you'd have been like, I don't know why Moses gets to stand on the mountain. I mean, I'm every bit as good as Hur is. I mean, nobody even knows what Hur does. What kind of name is Hur? Aaron, I get. Aaron is Moses' right-hand guy. I get that. Aaron's supposed to be up there with Moses, but I don't know why Hur's up there. Hur could have been down here. We don't get that from Joshua. We get that Joshua did as Moses said to do. Joshua, I need you to do what you can do, and I will do what I can do. Sometimes in your season, when the then hits, sometimes we get so overwhelmed trying to fix everything in a situation that you have no power to fix anyway. How many of you know you do this with worry? You're worrying about stuff that you got no power whatsoever to do. Nothing. No, it blows my mind to watch how much time we spend on things we have zero ability to affect. But man, we will burn some hours on it. And all the while, the things that we can truly do, the things that we can actually have time investing in, the things that we can actually cause change in, well, we wonder why we didn't get enough done at the end of the day. We wonder. I sat here and I thought about this, and I'm like, I'm sitting here and I know people. People ask me what I do at the church. I said, here's what I do at the church. I lead and I feed. That's what I do. Do you have to preach? Nope, I love to preach. I don't have to preach. Never had to do this a day in my life. Okay? But the other stuff, man, you don't want me running the soundboard back there. This is what I do on Sunday mornings. I walk back there, and I did it this morning. Philip's back there. I'm like, hey, where's my microphone? They're like, I think it's in your office. Good place for it. I'll see you when I get back. And I went back to my office, and I go get it. They don't need me to do anything but put batteries in this thing and put it on my head, because if I have to do that, it's a mess. If I'm trying to run the camera while I'm trying to do this, it's a mess. I work with young leaders in our internship because I want to make sure that they know the vision and who we are clearly. And there's only one or two people that can share that like I can share it. It's me and the person that's walked it with me since the beginning. And she's busy most of the time, because she only does the things that she does, and she does a lot. And so I see this leadership principle that Moses is putting out here, and he says, look, I'm only going to do what I can do, because what I can do really matters if I do it to the best of my ability. We see Moses go to the top of the hill. He stands there with his staff. The Bible tells us very clearly, as he raises his hands, Israel prevails. As he gets tired and they fall, Amalek prevails. But I wonder what would happen if Moses would have said, hey, somebody else, Joshua, why don't you go on the mountain, I'll go fight the battle. That wouldn't have been right. And Moses trying to get a message from God, trying to get an answer from God, while he's trying to swing a 120-year-old body around with a sword. Not sure how that's going to work. No offense to anybody that's 120. The reality is God's going to move you to different places in different seasons of your life. The question is, can you move to the different season? Do only what you can do. In the season that you are in right now, listen, I'm telling you, I've got people, leaders around me, and I am not a hands-on leader. Some people this really offends, and I'm just telling you straight up, I know how God has gifted me, and I'm super comfortable with it. My daughter's husband, Reed, he's in medical school, and he's brilliant, one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. But that dude is the most disciplined studier I've ever seen in my life. He comes home to visit, he sits down in the chair, we're talking about whatever, and the moment there's a pause in the conversation, he is reading something about the human anatomy on his phone, on his tablet. Then he'll engage right in the conversation. We'll be talking about fishing, hunting, riding this, doing that, whatever, and then the moment there's a pause in the conversation, human anatomy. And he is reading it and studying it, and he's brilliant. I told him yesterday, it's funny because Vanessa was giving him a hard time about fixing stuff at the house. And he just kind of smirked and laughed, and I was like, hey, I need to tell you something. I am not a fix-it guy either, and that's okay. Own that sucker. If you're not a fix-it guy, don't be. I know some of you men right now, you're like, you got to learn to do stuff. Yeah, that's cool. I'd rather pay somebody to do it. Because here's what I know. I could spend a whole lot of time doing things that other people can do, or I can really lean in and do the things that only I can do by the call of God in my life. And when that is my focus, the world changes. It's the same for you. We have been convinced that we've got to try to figure out how to do a million different things, and the entire time the devil has been happy about it because you've been so busy being busy, you've stopped being effective. Only do what you can do. Joshua would have the weight of leadership in years to come. There was a reason that God had Joshua fighting the battle here, because when Joshua took over in 40 years, he was going to have to fight a lot more battles. Moses wasn't. Moses said, I need to go do what I can do. And what I can do is keep the connection between God and I open so that I can report back what the Lord wants us to do in this moment. So people, do what you want to do, what you can do. Worry, stress. I grew up in a church with a lady that every time an ambulance would drive by her house, she would pick up and call all of her children. First time I heard it, I laughed too. I thought, what? That's ridiculous. And then I watched her. And I watched anxiety and fret and worry kill this lady. She had become so anxious that everything that was going wrong with her or somebody attached to her. And it literally destroyed her. You can't fix it all. Good news, you weren't intended to fix it all. Second thing is this: when you're in the middle of the then, take the right people with you. Take the right people with you. As you see this idea in Exodus chapter 17, it says, whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, and whenever he lowered his hands, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary. He got tired. Even in the midst of the battle, doing what only he could do, he got tired. And in the midst of being tired, what I love about Aaron and Hur in this moment, they don't say, Moses, are you tired? Is there anything we can do for you? How many of you know that one? I love this when people go through trial. We don't know what to do as humans, and so we just do what we think we're supposed to do, and we ask things like, is there anything that you need? How many of you are prideful people? You better raise your hands, church. You know how I know? Let me ask you this way. How many have you have had somebody come to you and go, is there anything you need? How many of you have had somebody do that to you? How many of you have said, no, we're fine? Even when you weren't. Pride. I love that Aaron and Hur never once go, Moses, are you getting tired? Moses, do you need a drink? No. They're standing there watching Moses, watching the surroundings, and they go, he's tired. Aaron, go grab that rock. Go get the rock. Go get the rock. Moses, hey buddy, here, have a seat. Just have a seat, Moses. Yeah, I'm tired, guys. But I noticed, yeah, we saw it too. We know. But Moses, just sit down for a second. We got you. But this is what I can do. I know, Moses, this is what only you can do, is to sit here and hold your hands up so that we prevail. But here's the reality, Moses. It never said you had to do that alone. We got you. And until the sun went down, Moses' hands were steady. Because Moses was so strong and impressive to the people around him? No. Because he took the right people with him. I am very protective of my team here. Very protective. Almost shepherd-like, you could say. There's a story in the Bible where the Bible talks about what a shepherd would do, or references the shepherd, and then when you study this out, a shepherd would lay at the gate. That's where he would sleep, is at the gate, the sheep gate of the pasture. Because that's the only place the sheep could go out, and that's the only place a wolf would come in. And so the shepherd would sleep at the gate. And so I'm protective of my team. I'm protective of who I bring with me. Because I know in the moments that I'm weary and I'm tired that my Aaron goes, yeah, I'll preach tomorrow. No, I don't know what it's going to be about, but I'll do it tomorrow. Don't worry, I got you. He texts me every day this week. Do you need anything? What can I do for you today? Walking along, not doing what I could do, because only I can do that. Being there so that I could do that. Folks, in your then moments, you'd better look around and see who you have with you. And it needs to be people that are observing the situation and watching for you. Watching for you. Hey, do you see this coming? Do you see this coming? Hey, I'm right here. What do you need right now? Do you need a place to sit down? Let me give you a place to sit down. One of the things I've been just convicted with this last year as I've been talking with pastors. As the country sees this thing, this shift happening that we're seeing, again, I keep saying this statistic because I pray God calls some of you into ministry. 40% of pastors in America are planning on either stepping away or have stepped away in the last year. 40%. 4 out of 10 churches are going to be without a pastor in the next 12 months. And they're only seeing that number increase. And when they do the statistics and they do the study and they ask pastors, why? What happened? We hit a moment and I didn't have anybody to go with me. I didn't have anybody holding up my arms. So God has convicted me that I'm going to be somebody that holds up their arms. We as a church are going to, if a pastor needs a break, come on in. You come just hang out with us this weekend. We'll find you a place to hang out. We'll get you a hotel room. We'll find you a place by the water. You can just sit there and stare at it. I don't care what you do, but rest. And let real life hold your hands up for a little while. let us just hold your hands up for a little while because I know the battle's heavy. Third thing. Not only do you do only what you can do, not only do you take the right people with you. What I've loved about the names of God that we have talked about are the promises that come with it. Jehovah Jireh, He is my provider. He is not my maybe provider. He is not my could-be provider. God is my provider. He sees what my need is and provides accordingly. Whether that be a ram in the thicket or whether that be a call from a friend, a text, a cup of coffee, whatever. He knows what I need. Last week, Aaron said, I am Rapha, Jehovah Rapha. I am your healer. I don't know what the healing is, whether that's physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, whatever it is, but He is the God who can heal it. He is the God who will step in the middle of the situation and give you a remedy for the thing that's burdening you. It's who He is. It's who He's always been. But this week is different. This one says, He is my banner. Jehovah Nissi, the banner. God is my banner. You say, I don't even know what this means. The banner in a battle was the thing that went before. We know this in America because we've grown up in a culture that understands and knows our history to some extent. We know there have been wars that we have fought. Even now our soldiers wear that banner on their shoulder. And when they have that, it's a notification to everybody of who I stand with. What I love about the banner in the biblical sense is that the banner would go before the Ark of the Covenant. The bannermen would go before the children of Israel. So when that thing crested a hill, it wasn't just who's standing with us, but it was a proclamation of, hey, this is who's coming. This is who's about to come over the hill. And I love the fact that God is my banner, because just like He says, hey, Moses, I want you to tell Joshua that from this point on, I'm going to take care of Amalek from generation to generation to generation. Do you know how many Amalekites are left? None. Yeah, you don't see the Amalekites on the evening news anymore, do you? No, because God keeps His promise of going before. Going before. God was in the situation before Joshua ever stepped into the situation. God was on the hill before Moses and Aaron and Hur ever got up there. What I need you to understand is this banner that goes before you, the anxiety that you're struggling with, the sickness that you're struggling with, this diagnosis that you're struggling with, this broken relationship that you're struggling with, the banner has gone before you. And God has been in that moment, waiting for you to get there, waiting to walk you through the moment, waiting to be hand in hand with you so you weren't fighting it alone. But God, Vince, I feel so alone. That's because you're not looking at the banner. You're not focusing on the fact that God has been with you all along. You're focusing on how weak you feel because you're probably trying to do too much and you haven't taken the right people with you. And so you've lost sight of the banner. You've lost sight of the promise that God has given you, that I'm way ahead of you. Is God the same yesterday, today, and forevermore? Then why are you freaking out about tomorrow? If He's the same God tomorrow as He was today, what do you have to worry about? The only thing we have to truly worry about is our reaction in those moments, our responses in those moments. And I'm maybe just getting old enough to realize I have very little control. But man, what a freeing thing it is to know that not once since the creation of everything has God lost control. Oh, but Vince, our society. Yeah, I know. People are ignorant. Right? Please don't hear an insult there where there's not one. Ignorance means they don't know. People don't know God. Why would they trust Him? People don't know His promises. Why would they trust Him? People don't know His grace. Why would they trust it? That's what's happening in our culture and our society. It's not that all of a sudden we've somehow turned the switch off. No, people just don't know God. and what he's capable of in their life. This house, you, me, our number one priority ought to be proclaiming Jehovah Nissi. The Lord is my banner. He is who I represent. He is who goes before me. He is the representation of who I am and all that I stand for. It is him. When you see him, you see me. And prayerfully, when we see you, we see him. Trust that God has gone before you. Trust that in that diagnosis, God is there. He's not surprised by it. I get tickled at this because now I have found out a few weeks back, and they announced it this week, that my daughter Vanessa and her husband Reed are they're going to have a baby in April. And so I get to be grandparent times 2. And it's awesome. I got to play with Elena last night. She walked in, Papa, that's right. Every time she says it, my ears perk up. How many of you know what I'm talking about? So does God. Every time you say it, his ears perk up. And he goes, no, that's mine. It's my child, and I am their banner, and I am their healer, and I am their provider. And when they call, I will be there. I will not leave them stranded. I will not leave them alone. I will go before, and I will handle the situation if they will trust me as I go before. Church, this whole idea of this I Am series was not to come back and somehow impress you with our knowledge of the Old Testament as much as it is to impress upon you the trust that God requires of us to just believe that he is. He is the provider. He is the healer. He is the banner that goes before us. And if you will embrace just those 3 of the many names of God, what changes in your life? What radically shifts in your life when I'm not so worried about this or that or a situation I can't fix or a circumstance that I can't seem to let go of. And God's going, I'm already there. I've already provided for it. I've already healed the situation. Trust me. Trust me. It's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and go, just forget about it. No. Because we're human. I'm with you in this. There are moments that God has to remind me to release my hands because I want to hang on to it. I want to fix it. Lord, if you'll let me handle this situation, I promise I'll take care of this sucker. And he laughs at me a little bit. It just makes me mad. He goes, Vince, this is who I am. This is not who you are. You do what only you can do. You take the right people with you, and you trust that I knew your then was coming. You trust that I knew this was going to happen, and I am already around the corner.